This morning, the leading officer on the case, right, of the Utah SBI, right, he was giving the timeline of events. And during that timeline of events, the officer said, and this is his words, okay, met with TPUSA representatives. Do you know who they are? Tyler Robinson on September the 10th?
And even if I did, I wouldn't tell you because you guys would just harass that person. And I know that person didn't do anything.
And I know that person didn't do anything. So you do know who it was if you know they didn't do anything, right?
Conspiracy theories are entering a dangerous
Information is the oxygen of the democracy.
There's so much evidence out there that even if less than 1% is true, that would be enough to collapse the current paradigm and change the whole planet.
So the Tyler Robinson preliminary hearing just wrapped up for the week. Friday was a short day, only a half day. And we now have a pretty solid understanding of what evidence is out there, what the prosecution is bringing, and maybe a little less of an understanding of what the defense is going to say about it. Certainly, they aren't necessarily showing all the evidence they have right now, but the evidence that they are showing paints an interesting picture. I'll let you judge for yourself. I'll show you everything that came up since our earlier midweek update. We got photos of the bullets that were recovered with the gun. We got photos of the gun. We got photos of the bullet that was allegedly recovered inside of Charlie's body, although it wasn't matchable to the gun. We'll talk about that. We got a whole bunch of discussion about DNA evidence that we'll very briefly summarize. A lot of people went to sleep that day. And we got finally video testimony of Lance Twiggs talking about how Tyler admitted to what he did and such. And people have mixed feelings. People have some feelings. You can decide for yourself what to think. But ultimately, this is going to be kind of a messy video. There's a lot going on right now. There's a million different conversations about different small pieces of evidence, about different theories. It's all devolving into name calling because obviously it has to. If you're going to be asking questions on the internet about any of the untouchable narratives, that's a very strange portion that we'll dig into a little bit. And we'll just try to wrap up the whole preliminary hearing a little bit so you understand what was said and what wasn't said. And I've got a tool, a resource that you can use if you want to, quickly skim and double check everything directly from the primary source, from the hearing itself. So I'll tell you about that a little bit later. But first, let's just rewind and circle back to the sort of origin of this whole conversation. Ground zero, the base. We were all told that there are just mountains of evidence out there, that it's so obvious that Tyler Robinson did this all alone, on his own, that if you saw the evidence, you would have no question. And that is the premise upon which people would say that I'm evil for asking questions, that Candace and Barron are just evil for even asking any questions, that they are demonic, because there's this whole campaign that just so happens to be carried out by all the Israel First Zio shills that shill for everything that the Trump administration does, including covering up the Epstein files and going to war with Iran, among other things. So it's like this weird overlap where the whole bought and paid for Zionist mainstream influencer economy is all saying, don't ask any questions. And if you do, you're an evil person. You're trying to set Tyler Robinson free. You're trying to taint the jury pool to cause a mistrial. And I don't know if they think that strategy is still working. I don't know if they think that we were all born yesterday and we don't know how the internet works, but we'll address it a little bit. And maybe we'll start with Posobiec. Jack Posobiec, former Navy intelligence, who has made a habit of reposting over and over and over statements like this. Statements that very clearly are presuming guilt before a trial. I don't think I need to remind Jack Posobiec that this is America, and in America you are innocent until proven guilty. But that is not how Jack Posobiec is operating. That is not how any of the mainstream Zio shills are operating. They're operating from, it's already proven, he's guilty 100%. And if you ask any other questions, if you say anything else, you're evil. You hate Erica, or you hate the Jews, or whatever. Okay. So this is the kind of slop that those people are posting. And they all have their own flavor and variety of it. And if you have your own X account, if you are on X, you might have noticed the absolute swarming of bots and micro accounts that are just flooding the comment sections to try to form a false consensus, as though everyone thinks that it's a closed and shut case. And they share posts like this. Tyler Robinson murdered Charlie. Now Candace is gunning for Erica. Evil. Which is just like, okay, bud. Okay. And this Andrew Zywake, sorry, bud. He's a pretty base dude. He's going to just remind us at the top here what the justice system in America is all about. I grow infinitely tired of the first sentence here. I don't know what goes on with the Candace situation. I don't watch podcasts. With that in mind, let me offer you all some sense. In America, you are innocent until proven guilty. End of story. Anyone making the statement this idiot just made needs to reflect. And yes, it's idiotic, so spare me the self-righteous virtue signaling. You do not condemn someone to guilt before seeing the evidence and going through a thorough process to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. This is a human right. So, Kristen, I know you find logic and consequence challenging, evidenced by your failure as a pro-life advocate, but bear with me here. When a high-profile political and religious figure, of which Charlie was both, is assassinated, no stone can be left unturned. Everyone close to him, every business relationship, every random quack letter with a threat, everything must be investigated. When this much money, power, and influence are involved, those closest must be met with ultimate scrutiny. Not as accusation, but as thorough investigation. I find it ridiculous that such common sense must be stated. As far as the ever-obvious clown show arguments, let's put something to bed. I don't trust our government. I don't trust any other government. When the most influential evangelical Christian on the planet is bankrolled by Jewish influence, which is a completely opposed theology, openly states that Israel is ethnically cleansing Gaza, as in openly makes accusations of genocide against the opposing religious influence that bankrolls his existence, one must factor this in. When donors, funding operatives, and world leaders are in the DMs, one must take that into account. I am not saying Israel killed Charlie. I literally have no idea. I am saying, how on earth can you rule any involvement out, even secondary involvement? You think this is so irrelevant that it doesn't merit investigation? You think screeching conspiracy makes you sound rational or well-intentioned? It doesn't. It makes you sound like a tone-deaf sycophant with no desire for truth, an oppressive thought policing tyrant. I also believe that Erica Kirk has acted extraordinarily strange in the wake of Charlie's death. Does that mean she killed him? No. Does that mean something is off? No. People act weird all the time. What it does mean is taking videos of Charlie in a casket and posting to social media is odd. The interviews are odd. The mannerisms are odd. The behavior is all odd. And there are odd things in the history. And that should all be taken into consideration. Again, on what planet is having eyes and ears and opinions on behavior some sort of thought crime? Again, I haven't even spoken about this topic, and I have no clue who killed Kirk. And indeed, I hold no position on it, but I find the shaping of narratives and the silencing of dissent and the mis- and disinformation campaigns akin to COVID, are you people completely lost? Given that this is the biggest political assassination since Kennedy, maybe people should stop being retards and look at the whole picture. Is it possible some random transgender freak pulled off the greatest hit of our lifetimes? Sure. Is it likely, given the circumstances? Not at all. Trust your government at your own peril. If you are incapable of having conversations on this topic, maybe sit at the children's table this Thanksgiving. In closing, you will likely never know who killed Kirk, but someone will fall. And fall is a severe understatement. But in the case of Tyler Robinson, if convicted, he's not going to fall. He'll be killed. End of story, end of life. So you'd better be right. You better not make a mistake. He'd better get the full extent of the American justice system, innocent until proven guilty by a trial in a court of his peers. That is not the perspective of the people out here already claiming that he did it for sure. Nothing wrong with having your own opinions about what the evidence shows. You should do that. I have my own opinions. You should have your own opinions, and you should think for yourself and form your own opinions. But I just wanted to point that out as we get into this conversation for today about what we know so far, because right now, the internet is just a spinning of narratives. And once you see them, it's wild to watch them weave. But if you aren't paying attention, it can be very easy to get sucked into a false consensus or to think that you're getting true information that is not actually based on anything real. There's a lot of lies floating around. So we're going to do our best to unpack what actually happened, share the actual evidence. And so now let's start with the confessions, because we got Lance Twiggs' testimony finally. We've got the text messages entered into evidence. We haven't seen the Discord messages yet, which we'll come back to. Let's just remember that the whole idea is that Tyler Robinson's parents turned him in, that he confessed to them and they knew he did it and they turned him in and he confessed to his Boy Scout leader, cop buddy guy that helped turn him in. He confessed. They've said this over and over and over and over. But now the preliminary hearing is done and we never saw any direct confessions from Tyler Robinson. We never saw testimony from or by his parents to say that he confessed to them. We never saw this cop, Boy Scout troop leader friend on the stand or any testimony from him saying that Tyler confessed to the crime to him. We don't even have video footage of him turning himself in exactly. So what do we have? Well, in the original charging documents from way back in September, we have a couple of paragraphs that sort of imply confession. As they discussed the situation, Robinson implied that he was the shooter and stated that he couldn't go to jail and just wanted to end it. When asked why he did it, Robinson explained, "There is too much evil, and the guy Charlie Kirk spreads too much hate." They talked about Robinson turning himself in and convinced Robinson to speak with a family friend who is a retired deputy sheriff. At Robinson's father's request, the family friend met with Robinson and his parents and convinced Robinson to turn himself in. The family friend spoke to police and reported telling Robinson that it would be best if he brought all the evidence with him to the sheriff's office to avoid police having to search his parents' home. They would still have to search his residences. The family friend also asked Robinson if they had any clothes that related to what he did. Robinson replied that he had disposed of the clothes in different areas. So that sounds like a confession. You would expect to get the meat of this now when they're showing the evidence in court. We didn't get any of that. Except for, we'll talk about the text messages in just a minute. This is the affidavit of probable cause that was filed at the same time, where it says, on the evening of September 11th, 2025, a family member of Tyler Robinson's reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident. So that's the language that we have about this confession, because that's rock solid. If Tyler confessed, then just have the person he confessed to make a statement, either on the stand or a written affidavit or a sworn testimony and video. And voila, you have a pretty slam dunk case. We didn't get any of that. None of that came. Neither of his parents are on record. Boy Scout troop leader is not on record. We have no record of Tyler confessing, except by the text message chain that was originally published in part in these documents that had the entire internet making memes about how retarded it is to imagine that a 20-something-year-old Gen Z kid would be talking in this Shakespearean Old English language about his vehicle and about how, alas, my love, I shall not see you. And also about how he opens the text message chain by saying, to be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you. Now, let me text you a complete confession to every single element of the crime, item by item, line by line, in digital text message format, which obviously is a permanent record of my guilt, which just doesn't make sense to anybody. It never squared with anybody with a brain. And there was also Discord confessions that he apparently made to his friends on Discord after he decided to turn himself in, but right before he went in, that have disappeared. They're not putting those into evidence anymore. We haven't seen those, at least. No one's mentioned them. And Barron Coleman brings up a great point he's been elaborating on over the last couple weeks about why that might be, about why they might not want to talk about the Discord confessions anymore, because they might have happened after he was already in police custody. And we'll get into that in just a second. But first, let's see what Lance Twiggs actually said on the stand. Let's get into the new stuff that actually came the last couple of days of the trial here. So this is the video that we got. Lance Twiggs looking very robotic, giving video testimony. A lot of people were saying it's AI and stuff. It's like, I don't think it's AI, guys. It's like, maybe, I don't know. But like, there's nothing to indicate that it's AI. He's just very flat. He's very SSRI feeling. He's very... But one thing that he's not very is transferry feeling. You just watch him talk in his deep voice, wearing his suit, referring to himself as Lance, clearly male. He's been working construction jobs, it sounds like. That's what he said. So, not sure where the transferry stuff ever came from or is coming from. A little weird.
Did you and he ever talk about politics?
He did more than me. I don't really keep up with politics very much. He'd usually talk about stuff he heard on the radio on his drive to work in like their work car, since it sounds like their whole crew went in the same car.
Because Tyler Robinson was also working blue collar electrician jobs. So we've got two gay furries people allegedly that are both working blue collar construction style jobs at the time.
What about Charlie Kirk? Did you ever talk about Charlie Kirk?
I personally had never heard him talk about Charlie Kirk before specifically.
So if you remember, the idea is that Tyler Robinson took out Charlie Kirk because of how hateful Charlie Kirk was towards trans people. And because Lance was allegedly trans, no evidence of that here, that was enough to rile him up to assassinate Charlie Kirk. Despite the fact that he'd never talked to Lance about Charlie Kirk ever at all. He never probed about how Lance felt about it, apparently. That's a little weird to me. I think that's weird. You can think what you want.
Okay. Political issues. So did you ever talk about gender identity issues and LGBTQ rights?
No, not really.
What?
He did talk about politics stuff. It was relating to Trump or current policies being issued or voted on.
So it sounds like he was just sort of listening to Fox News BoomerCon on the radio on his drives to work, and he had some basic milquetoast 20-year-old opinions about it. But they never talked about Charlie Kirk, and they never talked about gender and LGBTQ stuff, even though they were definitely gay trans lovers or whatever the story is. So that's just a little weird. It's a little weird. And it's worth noting that the defense tried to get Lance Twiggs on the stand. Apparently was blocked for whatever reason. They're not allowed to have Lance Twiggs on the stand testifying in court. So instead, all we get is a pre-filmed video where he's asked very specific questions. That being said, the defense characterized the video. We didn't get to see it all. They redacted a whole bunch of it, so the court didn't see the whole testimony. But the defense characterized it as a video where Lance was just going to be asked questions and sort of nodded along and said yes over and over and over. So it was better than that. I think it's probably because they showed us the sections that were more substantive. But he did answer questions. And when he answered questions and actually spoke, it did not really add up to the picture that we've been told it would paint. The other sort of controversial part of this is he was asked whether he could identify Tyler Robinson from these photos. And people are getting hot takes on both sides. So I'll just let you listen to what he said in his own words, and you can judge for yourself.
Hey, I'm on the FBI's website. You can see the URL there at the top. This is some press release about this event.
So notice that they're showing him the same blurry screenshots that we all saw on the FBI's website that week, the week of the shooting. Kind of weird that they wouldn't go any more high def, that they wouldn't show him the videos or anything like that. They would just show him this.
Here on the screen, you see these. Looks like there's 2 rows of 3 images.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recognize the person in these images?
I wouldn't say it with 100% certainty just because of camera quality, but that looks like him in terms of the shoes he's wearing, the sunglasses. I don't think I'd specifically seen him wearing that hat, but he was usually wearing a hat, and then jeans.
So the people that think Tyler didn't do it are all latching onto this part of it where he basically says, I can't 100% say, but based upon the clothing that this person is wearing, it looks kind of like Tyler, which is exactly what you don't want to say when you're IDing a witness, because obviously anyone can dress up in clothing that looks like Tyler Robinson's clothes. Like, that's the concerning part, is that it kind of feels like maybe there was some body doubles walking around that day. Maybe there was more than one person dressed up to look like Tyler Robinson. That's one of the main concerns. So one side latched onto that first part, and then there's kind of a pause and some more clarification.
It definitely, especially the bottom, the last two, definitely do look like him.
So some people have said that he was like coached to say more or something. We don't know. We can't know that. But he definitely sort of says two different types of things at the two different parts of that answer. And ultimately, these are extremely fucking grainy images anyways. So take that however you want to take that. Lance's complete testimony is a segment that lasts like 20-something minutes during the hearing. You can go watch the whole thing for yourself. One of the other things that we got for the entirety of, I guess it would have been Wednesday afternoon, it was extremely laborious. Everyone fell asleep. It was just this giant mega struggle session about the DNA evidence. And the defense tried to like take a huge line of questioning that was like they were going to try to debunk DNA science in general, which if you actually listen to the trial and you didn't know about DNA evidence, a lot of people came away from that trial, from that day, realizing that, oh my God, DNA is not some like hard science like we've been led to believe by like CSI. Let's just say DNA evidence can be subjective and complicated, and it's not just a clean cut yes or no, it matches or it doesn't. It's complicated. Generally speaking, what came out of the overall trial on the DNA evidence is that Tyler Robinson's DNA is all over everything with relatively conclusive certainty, probably, I'm pretty sure, that his DNA is on all these items, like the weapon and the cartridges and the screwdriver and the towel. But then the issue is that Lance Twiggs's DNA is also on several of those items, particularly the towel and the screwdriver. I'm not particularly clear. I don't really care to try to pull it apart. You can do this for yourself if you care. But it was said very clearly that Lance Twiggs was presented as an elimination sample, as in you should expect to find Lance Twiggs's DNA on these items. So here's his DNA. When you see it, ignore it, so to speak. Like I'm interpreting that myself a little bit, but he was presented as an elimination sample, basically saying like, this DNA will be there because he's the roommate. You're looking for Tyler's, which is a little concerning as a supposition, because if you haven't put two and two together here yet, we have text messages between Tyler and Lance that have no timestamps within them, that we have no real way to corroborate that they came from Tyler specifically. So we got photos of the phone screen of Lance Twiggs's phone showing the timestamps or showing the text messages. And they start right here. Sam Parker points out that weird, there's this super bizarre screen damage right over top of where the time should be. So that's a little interesting. But furthermore, we can see right here, Wednesday, 11 o'clock p.m. So it was at 11 o'clock p.m. that the automated text message, the just in case I'm dead text message, gets sent to Lance. Tyler thought, what? Fuck, I tried to delete that. And this is what starts the whole text conversation. And Barron scrolled through the entire thing in all these phone photos and showed that there's no timestamps in between any of the messages. As in, on iPhone, if you take a break and like put your phone down for an hour and then text again, it'll put a new timestamp in that like, oh, this one was sent at 7 p.m. This one was sent at 8 p.m. That does not appear anywhere in the entire text thread, somewhat implying that it was one continuous conversation with no significant breaks. Also, the fact that the conversation starts at 11 p.m. gets a little problematic, but I'm not going to get into the whole fucking timeline. Barron has broken it down exceptionally well, and you should go watch his content. But this is what they came in as. Photos of Lance Twiggs's phone. Let's just remind ourselves that Lance Twiggs is the roommate. Lance Twiggs has access to all the tools that were used, the Dremel for engraving the bullets, the screwdriver, the towel. His DNA is all over all of those items. He's probably got access to Tyler's rifle and to all the rounds. They live in the same house. They share the same, like he can go in and out of his room. It's all there. I think there was a part where they talked about Tyler having a safe, but that he never used it, which is pretty typical 20-year-old behavior, honestly. And then the question of like, can Lance access Tyler's devices? And I would argue that's pretty likely that he can. It's pretty fucking likely that he knows Tyler's password to his devices, or that Tyler might leave his computer laying around, because if you're signed in on one device, you're signed in on all your devices, and any of those devices can send a text message. So that's not to say that we know that Tyler didn't send those text messages. It's to say that we don't know that he did, right? And obviously in this hearing, the standard is not beyond reasonable doubt. The standard is just probable cause for this to go to trial. And obviously it's going to go to trial. But when we're looking forwards at the trial, do we actually have evidence of Tyler confessing to this crime? Do we actually have evidence that shows that it was for sure Tyler and not Lance? Because from where I'm sitting, Lance looks extremely fucking suspicious. Lance has all of the access to all of the items. He looks very similar to Tyler. He could pass as him in those security photos, although I don't really think he did. And he's in the perfect position to frame the guy, honestly. I don't really know what to make of what we've been told about Lance's like sexual proclivities, about his like tranny stuff, and there was like reports of his I don't know, because now he's not even really presenting as trans or anything. But that's the DNA evidence that is kind of mixy-matchy. Definitely indicating Tyler. There's some discrepancy about 2 samples or 3 samples. I'm no DNA scientist, and I didn't find the DNA evidence to be particularly conclusive in any one direction. It's no mystery that Tyler Robinson's rifle has his own DNA on it. It's no mystery that a screwdriver from his house has his DNA on it. It's no mystery that a towel from his house has his DNA on it. It also has Lance Twiggs' DNA on it. So it's like that's not really proving anything about the fact that he took the shot from that location. And especially when you bring into consideration all the other things that we learned. And one of the big things that we learned is we got photos of the bullet. Photos of all the bullets. So just quickly to hop in here, let's just give ourselves a quick primer.
I just don't see it being plausible that there's no exit wound if it is a straight through the neck shot. I have a hard time explaining that.
Okay, cool. Right on, Gary. Good to know. Because it was a straight through the neck wound with a 30-06 bullet. A soft point is what it looks like. And obviously, I'm being flippant. Gary would say it wasn't straight through the neck. It hit his spine, and that's how it deflected and deformed and exploded into pieces, and that's why they can't match it to the gun. Let's start at the top here. Photos of the rifle. Different photos, mind you, than we had before. There's a lot of speculation about this rifle being different than this rifle. I think they're the same rifle. I think they're just flipped over. I think that this one is you're seeing one side, and this one is you're seeing the other side, flipped over in the box. But people can argue about it online. I'm not sure. It is curious that the official police photos are during the day, and then obviously much later, like into the evening possibly, the rifle has been flipped around, but in the same location and box, and another photo was taken that was leaked to the press, is a little weird, but whatever. And we got photos of the spent cartridge that was still in the rifle, never ejected. I took my screens while we were hanging with the boys watching. We got images of the back of the cartridges, and we got images of all the other engraved rounds that were, I guess, in the magazine, but not fired. And all the engravings on them. Oh, we also got photo of the burnt up note that Tyler allegedly left for Lance. And then someone burned, but not completely. Which, just really quickly, if you were trying to burn the note of your confession to eliminate the evidence, why would you leave a giant piece of it still intact? Did you run out of lighter fluid in your lighter? Doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of burning the note? And furthermore, we got a photo of the note too that they weren't supposed to release that actually kind of caused a fucking problem in the courtroom. We also got photos of Tyler's targets. And listen, I don't shoot rifle. I don't own my own rifle. I have minimal experience with handguns. I'm no gun guy. But I know enough to know that this dude's not really a gun guy either. This is like his best grouping right here to the left of Bullseye. This one's kind of spread out. He's got a couple of rounds fired out here in the outer circle. This one, he's got some rounds all over the place. He got some off the target. It's not really clear if these are actually bullet holes in the backing that these targets are attached to, but there's all these weird holes in weird places down here that could be bullet holes. He's not an impressive shot. We don't know much about this. We don't know what caliber. We don't know what range. We don't really know about this, but he's definitely not lacing the bullseye on his targets. So this is an interesting thing to include in the exhibits. Here's the photo of the note that was not supposed to be published. And people couldn't help but notice that there's a fucking date and time in the metadata at the top of this one that we'll get into in just a second. And then photos of the jacket of the round that was recovered from inside of Charlie. We're not going to get into all the details because they kind of elaborated on this with the ballistics lady for quite some time. But these are images of the pieces of the bullet. And they were not able to match this bullet to Tyler's gun. That does not mean that they concluded that it was not fired from Tyler's gun. It simply means that it was too mangled and there wasn't enough material, there wasn't enough similarity between the rifling, between, I guess, the test shots from the rifle and this bullet. So they were not able to conclude yay or nay either way. It could have been fired from any number of like a couple dozen 30 caliber rifles. So let's just remind ourselves of this tweet from Andrew Colvett back in September 2025, last year. I just want to address some of the discussion about the lack of an exit wound with Charlie. I'm usually not interested, but probably another miracle. And I want people to know. So I just spoke with the surgeon who worked on Charlie in the hospital. And he said that the bullet absolutely should have gone through, which is very, very normal for a high-powered, high-velocity round. I've seen wounds from this caliber many times, and they always just go through everything. This would have taken a moose or two down, an elk, etc. That is in quotation marks. He is attributing that quotation to the surgeon, which allegedly the surgeon never said. But it didn't go through. Charlie's body stopped it. I mentioned to his doctor that there were dozens of staff, students, and special guests standing directly behind Charlie on the other side of the tent. And he replied, it was an absolute miracle that someone else didn't get killed. A miracle. Right, Andrew. Right.
And actually, let me just read you the description straight off the box so you know that I'm not making this stuff, all right? So it says right here, these are the rounds that Tyler used. They're designed for deep penetration and controlled expansion up to 2 times the original caliber diameter of a full metal jacket round. Designed for high weight retention, and they won't break up or separate on impact for more effective stopping power.
So you can watch Nate's whole video about it. Great video. Or you could listen to all the haters online that think that Nate doesn't know anything about firearms, that think he's a horrible person, terrible, terrible person for even, ever expressing his opinions online. Silly Green Beret. The fact of the matter, you can hate on me. You can call me a pizza delivery boy all you want. You can talk about how I'm not the gun guy all you want. You're right. I'm not the gun guy. It's my understanding that they make them bullets for hunting elk and moose and, big game, deer and such. And a lot of you guys out there, a lot of the experts on Twitter have hunted big game with them. They're designed to kill big ass animals. They're designed to go through the chest cavity of a gigantic animal, blast through the rib cage, get into the vital organs, and kill it. That's what they're designed to do. They are not designed to stop in a human neck. I have been pointing that out to people on the internet now that we know the actual bullet, because a lot of them, like Gary, that we already showed a clip from, they were originally of the perspective, right? The old narrative was, well, maybe it's really old World War II ammo. Maybe it was hand loaded. Maybe there's all kinds of different types of bullets that it could be that would be slower or lower velocity or would be damaged or something. So them goalposts have moved because they were brand new, just soft points from like Walmart. They were just like your basic hunting round straight from Walmart, essentially. They weren't old. They weren't World War II era. They weren't hand loaded, obviously. We kind of all knew that. They weren't frangible, right? And it turns out that we actually already have testing of these exact rounds. Chris Martinson and his team already tested these exact rounds. Amongst the other like 50 or 60 tests that he did, he tested a whole bunch of Remington Core-Locked 30-06. To be fair, his grain, we don't know the exact grain of the bullets, I don't believe. He didn't test every grain or weight of these bullets that exists, but he shot a whole bunch of them. And if you notice, they all went through and through. And I'll show you what that means. So here's the shot.
From here to here,
It's coming in on a downward angle, and it goes all the way straight through, and you can watch all this stuff blowing out the back here. Some of that is bone, some of that's pig ejecta from the pork roast itself, some of it probably some plywood. So that's what it looks like, and this shot just went absolutely straight through.
So, to clarify, it's going straight through pork roast, bone in. Big old bone in there, through the meat, through the bone, through the other meat, and then straight through the wall, which is not a strong wall, but it's long gone. So the question, the allegation from all of the lovely individuals on X, like Matt Tardio here, he's having a real one. He's very angry. Phoenix Ammunition, losing his mind, completely losing his mind. He's so pissed. We're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And one of their core allegations is that if you don't shoot a living human neck, the test is completely invalid, which obviously is a retarded talking point. Obviously, you can shoot things that will help you understand what the bullet might do when it hits a human neck. And here is Chris Martenson explaining that actually pig is a pretty solid analog for human flesh, human tissue.
We wanted to get these pork picnics that would sort of resemble a human neck, right? That's a picnic roast right there. And again, it has this big bone it has to support. So these are things that are as large or possibly larger than a human neck. So we're trying to recreate as carefully as possible the conditions of a human neck to see what happens when you shoot a variety of different 30-06 rounds at it under a variety of conditions.
This is called the scientific method. And obviously you can't shoot living necks, so you just have to get the best possible analog. And in case, in case it wasn't clear, scientists do this all the time. There's all kinds of testing that scientists do and utilize in our lives every day that they can't test on humans directly. So they use analogs like rats or like beagles, unfortunately, or all sorts of other things. Sometimes they just skip the testing entirely and say it's safe and effective, trust the science. And then Gary goes, yeah, trust the science. Or Ben Shapiro says, get the vaccine, you dopes. But that's how science works, in case you weren't clear. You design an experiment, you carefully measure all the variables as much as possible, you try to control the variables that you can control, you explain all of that, and then you vary the variable that you want to measure and test, and then you do your experiment, you record your results. And Chris Martenson did an excellent job of that. And it's worth noting that obviously the bone in the center of these picnic roasts, these pork roasts, is way stronger than a human neck. So here's all the testing that he did across these various tests, 55 of them marked here. A whole bunch of them are core locked rounds here. Every single one of them through and through. Not a single one stopped in fucking anything because they're designed to kill elk and moose, obviously. Duh. This is really basic. Oh, hey, B. So you do pay attention to what I'm posting. You just don't have the balls to respond. The expert that you posted said a mushrooming tip is designed for deep penetration and would blow right through everything. I show you a 9mm with the same penetration depth through ballistics gel and you go silent. Why is that, Ian? No response? It hurts your narrative? I'm not sure what you're getting at here, Matt. First off, your post isn't linked. I'm not sure what post you're referring to. Second off, what? What are you talking about? Oh yeah, and this was in response to him like fantasizing about how he's causing my audience to shrink. About how he's like, I'm sure he used to have 1.5 million followers on X. Now he only has 1.4. We're winning. It's like, no, dude, I've never had 1.5 million followers on X. That's the number it's been for a long time. And then we have Phoenix Ammunition, the ammunition manufacturer that's come back out of the woodwork to argue again about ballistics. That just seems really scared to film himself shooting anything because we have a whole bunch of footage of people shooting all sorts of 30-06 rounds, including the exact rounds, more or less, that were used. And they all just go through everything. They go through solid steel. They go through pork bone in. They go through cow femurs wrapped in meat. They go through walls. They go through cinder blocks. They go through ballistics dummies of every form. We've seen 30-06s go through just about everything at this point. And obviously, Phoenix Ammunition and everybody else is afraid to film themselves doing any kind of testing. You can't test on analogs. It's not even relevant. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't do anything. Yeah, it doesn't matter because it would show, obviously, that the bullet's going through shit way, way, way stronger than a human neck. And you don't want to show that because that would be really inconvenient for you that's trying to argue that this bullet stopped in a human neck. So instead, these guys just bring up like singular instances like, oh, MLK got shot by a 30-06. Well, There's a lot of problems with the MLK investigation, not the least of which the lawsuit that his family won against the FBI years later. But furthermore, the official trajectory of the bullet was like in, shattered his jaw, out, then back into him again. So it actually did exit, then it re-entered, and then fucked him up some more. And it shattered his jaw along the way, which is a hell of a lot stronger than a human neck. But we digress. Anecdotes, insults, distractions, because no one wants to confront the fact that we have a shitload of footage that I showed some of last video of 30-06's obliterating everything. And that's just not what we saw happen to Charlie's neck. And all of them, well, most of them, Gary Melton certainly, used to talk about how that was really suspicious to him and how that's why he had a hard time believing the mainstream narrative. There's actually a whole hour-long documentary that Homeboy put together about it, Logic Bender. Holy shit, what a legend.
Round hit right there, right at the collar line, and hit the edge of his plate and deflected or ricocheted.
So at first it was Gary was certain that Charlie Kirk was wearing plate armor. And to be fair, we didn't know. His shirt looked super weird. A lot of us were speculating about plate armor.
At that point, Gary admitted he was wrong about the armor, but he still couldn't make sense of why there wouldn't be an exit wound.
And there's nothing I hate worse than being wrong.
We know,
really
Gary.
Hard not to be. But
we know.
When I am wrong, I'm going to come clean and make sure you guys know. Coley, with 30-06, there should have been an exit wound, correct? Even with it being in the neck. Yeah, I mean, you would think. I have a hard time believing that a 30-06 round hits collarbone and then just deflects upward. Weird things definitely do happen with bullets, but that would seem unlikely, to say the least. Especially the neck area. Like, there's not a lot of, even if it hits the spine, it's pretty thin. Like, this is like, you know,
it is pretty thin, Gary.
Freaking with Charlie Kirk, he's a smaller guy than me, and you know, it's probably 8 to 10 inches thick of meat, and like rifles will penetrate quite easily 8 to 10 inches of meat and bone. So I do find it odd that we don't see an exit wound.
He doesn't find it odd anymore, though. Now he's completely certain of the Fed slop narrative. You can do your own digging into why that might be. We don't need to get into it. But just want to point out that one of our primary shills has a whole archive of footage of him saying the exact things that we're all thinking and saying. As I was finishing recording everything, all the TPUSA influencers were filing out of court with this crazy new story about this video that they all saw at the end of the very last day after the cameras were off, so none of us got to see it. They apparently got to see this crazy high-definition video that was zoomed in that showed Tyler Robinson taking the shot. Except there's some problems with that, and this tool is a perfect example. This is a great time to use it to ask some questions and get some answers. So if you don't know, me and my buddies made web so that you could access the Epstein files and actually decode them all and pull out the files you need using AI to leverage so that regular people can investigate these files for themselves. And we threw the Tyler Robinson transcripts in there from these court hearings so that you can easily decode what was said and what wasn't said, what was shown and what wasn't shown for yourself. So you don't have to trust the talking heads that are paid by TPUSA or whoever else when they, you know, maybe lie to you a little bit. I'm going to sign into web here, start up a new chat, and ask it a question. So I just tell it that I was told that Erica Kirk's lawyers wanted them to play this video at the end, and after the cameras were off. Is it true? And is this the same video exhibit that was referenced earlier in the court proceedings? What can you tell me about this? Webb will think and do a little research, pull back a bunch of sources directly from the transcripts, think some more, do some more research. So the victim representative, Erica Kirk's attorney, asked, hey, can we play that video? I want it to be played in open court. And the judge ruled, I will grant that request, and that will be played in open court, and we will watch the totality of, I believe it is State Exhibit 12.1, which is 8, give or take 2 minutes. And on the question of cameras, the defense then asked, Your Honor, and just to clarify, it will not be televised, correct? It's only for the people in the courtroom. Judge says that is correct because the request was made by the victim representative who is present in court. So earlier in the hearing on day 1, the prosecution had wanted to play this video montage of the shooter jumping on the roof. And it turns out that they had done some zoom ins and added some circling and sort of like edited it a little bit. And the judge rejected this. He said, you can't play that. It's edited. That doesn't fly. You're going to have to go back overnight and make a version that's not edited, that doesn't have these zooms and stuff. And you can play that tomorrow. The original edited version was called Exhibit 12.1. And the unmarked, non-zoomed in version that they made overnight and then did present in court wound up being called Exhibit 12.4. And the cool thing about Webb is that all these answers come with citations, these little red numbers. And so any part of this that you want to double check for yourself, in this transcript, it is linked as an actual video link directly to that part of the transcript. If you're looking at the Epstein files, the link will be directly to the file. That's the key. You can't trust AI, even AIs that are very well tuned into the specific research or documents that you want to ask about. You still got to double check for yourself. So source citation is critical, and that's the whole point of Webb, is to not just go ask an AI chatbot what the answer is, but instead to use AI to sort through files, to sort through the truth here, get it out, and then actually go to the primary source and see it for yourself. In case you hadn't noticed, I don't do brands or sponsors or, shout at you about companies that you should work with or anything like that or buy from. So instead, I do ad reads for my own companies, my own stuff that I built for my own research, for you to do more of your research, to empower people to know more things. Get after it. And you'll support me, you'll support my team, and you'll support more people getting the freedom of information that lets us think critically for ourselves. So we're doing it $5 for your first month right now, so that if you want to try it out, you can try it out. If you just want to look at the Tyler Robinson trial, you can just look at the Tyler Robinson trial. And if you just want to come to the website and spin the lasso for fun, the lasso of truth, feel free to just hop in here and drop some pins and spin the lasso of truth. So that's our gift to you if you're into it. So it turns out that it's actually just the same video footage that we already got from the same surveillance cameras that we already saw, same resolution, everything. They just used a video editing program to zoom in on it. So I'll let you make up your mind as to whether you think that qualifies as 4K video that clearly shows the shot. Yeah, it's all very transparent at this point. We got the Erica Kirk lawyer, Teep USA lawyer, asked them to show this video off camera on the last day when they packed the house with a whole bunch of Teep USA influencers. So then all those Teep USA influencers could just happen to come out after court on the last day of court and have this crazy story about this footage that you didn't see, but they did. Trust them. It was crazy. It sure showed what happened. Except the problem was that Brandy and Billy of Brandy and Billy Show, they were there. Some real journalists were there in the house. In fact, they literally slept on the concrete in order to get slots in line because there was only 14 of them. So they stayed overnight on the concrete so they could get in. And they saw the video, and they immediately called bullshit. This is their court wristbands. Brandy posted saying, "I was in the courtroom today. There is no high-quality zoomed-in footage showing anyone taking a shot. The video shown is the same distance as the footage of Tyler jumping off the roof shown in this screenshot. Tyler. I have no idea why people are claiming otherwise. They know the video isn't going to be released publicly, so they're misrepresenting what was actually shown in court. Whoopsies." And that started a firestorm. They tried to discredit Brandy.
Robinson's face. It could be anyone. It literally could be anyone. It does not zoom in well enough at all for you to be able to tell who it is. You can see someone crouching down. You cannot see anyone pulling a trigger. There is no sound. People are saying oh, there was sound. You could hear the gunshot. That is an absolute lie. No sound at all.
Score one for real journalists. Shout out to Brandy. Shout out to Billy. Give them a follow if you don't already. Don't believe the psyops, folks. I'm also pretty sure that I forgot to mention a couple other things. I don't think we ever dug into the timeline, Baron Coleman's dissecting of the fact that he was probably already turned in to the police before the Discord messages were ever sent, and maybe even causing problems for other parts of the narrative too. But that's not going to fit in this video, honestly. So it's a good thing I forgot about it. We'll cover that more in the future, but realistically, you should just go to Baron and get it straight from the source because he is killing it. Today's Sunday, as I'm recording this, Sunday morning. Candace comes back tomorrow. I think it's going to be a big episode. I think a lot of people are wondering what Candace has to say. So I'll be there with you watching, and we'll see what happens next week. But now, back to the actual original video. So now, let's get back to the other bullet. The weird bullet. The extra bullet that was found on the scene that just got dropped into the testimony and forgotten about because we all have questions. If you don't know, it came out in court across the first couple days that they found another live round, an unfired bullet on a different rooftop that no one ever thought to mention. Different caliber, different gun. A bullet that would go with an AR platform. A bullet that actually you might point out that Nate Valhalla VFT, he originally for the entire time has been saying that he thinks that's the caliber that might have been used if you see that wound. He thinks that .223 is a far more likely round to be shown. So the question is, where is this roof that it was found on, and does it have a line of sight? And I actually have drone footage from that roof specifically because I droned that roof to look at that exact line of sight. I went and retrieved the footage from my SD card today to check it. I went and Terrell Farnsworthed it and pulled my SD cards out and snuck them out. And then I edited them. No, I'll show you in just a second. But first, here's Google Earth, just so we can kind of get our bearings on what we're talking about here. Charlie is in the center of the plaza, right? And this is the alleged sniper perch where Pixel Man walked up the stairs and came out here and allegedly took the shot. The other bullet, so Charlie, allegedly Tyler Robinson, and the other bullet was found on this roof right up here. Yeah, the building directly in line with the alleged shooting angle, just a little higher up and a little further back. That is an awfully convenient roof to find a fucking bullet on. Does that roof have a line of sight to Charlie Kirk? Because if it did, it would be pretty much the exact same angle as where allegedly Tyler Robinson was at. So I recorded this myself with my own drone. It's not some scientific experiment. It's just me flying a drone on the last 5 minutes of its battery right before it died. So let's scrub around. What I did is I came up over the roof and looked down at the roof, and then we kind of look out. I do a little flight around. I try not to crash while I get down real low and try to check this exact angle. So we don't know where on this roof the bullet was found. He's just found on this roof, and the guy said east side of the building, but his cardinal directions were all fucked up, so we don't trust him. We don't know where the bullet was found. Gary Melton, actually, Paramount Tactical, did a whole scan of the whole campus with a super expensive drone, and basically he himself demonstrated that there is a line of sight from these black curved roofs. There maybe you could finagle a way that there's a line of sight from right out on the corner of the big black slopey roof thing. But out here on the flat roof, I don't know as that flies. I think you're too low over here. What there is, however, is a direct line of sight to where allegedly Tyler Robinson was. Great place for overwatch of the whole situation. In thinking about this roof, one of the things that I'm kind of wondering about with this testimony that they haven't answered, that hopefully they will during trial, is why the fuck is there even a bullet up here? Why is there a police officer with a loaded AR up on this roof? They'd already gotten someone in custody, George Zinn. They'd already cleared him, released him, detained at least one other person. The campus was clear. The shooting was long over. This roof is way outside of the scope. No one was talking about this roof. And even if you are, it's just maybe they're all carrying their loaded ARs around. To be fair, they're probably carrying loaded guns around. But Nate gave us a great perspective that no police officer is leaving their live ammo in the middle of a crime scene with their fingerprints on it. That's not happening. But this roof is a place where there's a lot of places where if you were to accidentally drop a bullet, you wouldn't be able to go retrieve it. Especially if you were doing something nefarious and you had to get the fuck out of there. So if you were doing something nefarious and you were up here on this upper level and you accidentally dropped a bullet and it rolled off down to here, for example, or even just rolled off down to here or something, well, then you can imagine why a bullet might get left there, even though that's super not good, not great. But that's all speculation. We don't know. We do not know. But I just wanted to give you a little update on what roof the bullet was on because we did get testimony directly. So we got this testimony of exactly where the bullet was.
That a bullet was found on a roof. Do you remember that testimony?
I do.
Do you have knowledge about that bullet, what that is about?
Yes, I do.
What roof was that bullet found on?
I believe it was found on the computer science building on the roof, on the far east side of the roof.
This is the computer science building. And technically, if I circle around to the north, east would be the right-hand side of it, back here. That being said, his cardinal directions were all fucked up, so we don't really trust his cardinal directions anyways, so who knows? It kind of could have been anywhere up there. We don't know. Oh, man. It's been a long week. It's been a lot of testimony. I just looked down at my notes to be all right, have we covered everything? And I noticed the part about Tyler Robinson allegedly meeting with TPUSA reps and subsequently Blake Neff telling us that he knows who it was, but he's not going to tell us who it is. And it's because Blake Neff went onto Twitter Spaces and just ran his fucking mouth and incriminated himself a whole lot for no reason. And it's just like, oh man, do I even want to get into this? This is a mess. This is a huge mess. This was an extremely long Twitter Space. I think it was an hour or two. And Blake Neff said a lot of things. A lot of people have done good breakdowns of this. Barron did a good breakdown. Coach Cullen did a much more extensive breakdown, worth checking out. But let's just listen to this clip specifically.
This morning, the leading officer on the case, right, of the Utah SBI, right, he was giving the timeline of events. And during that timeline of events, the officer said, and this is his words, okay, met with TPUSA representatives. Do you know who they are? Tyler Robinson on September the 10th?
And even if I did, I wouldn't tell you because you guys would just harass that person. And
So first answer, no, I don't know who that is. And even if I did, I wouldn't tell you because you guys would just harass that person. But then he lets another little thing slip right afterwards in this second part of the answer. So listen carefully.
I know that that person didn't do anything.
And I know that that person didn't do anything. So you do know who it was if you know they didn't do anything, right? That's a little concerning. And some very funny theories have evolved now that have some funny memes. We learned the other day that Tyler Robinson's car was seen in the middle of the night, allegedly, being driven by a bald guy with 3 friends. And now we have memes of Blake Neff driving Tyler Robinson's car around in the middle of the night with his boys, trying to wrap up the crime of the century, and it's hilarious. To be clear, I'm not accusing Blake Neff of driving Tyler's car or having anything to do with it. I don't know. But he certainly should not have joined that Twitter space. He should shut his fucking mouth. Blake Neff is not helping his cause or TPUSA or Erica Kirk or anybody except for us. He's helping Barron. He's helping Candace. He's helping people like me that want answers. He's a little loose in the lips. Whoopsie daisies. So I think we're ready to wrap back around to the end of this thing and talk big picture. But to get there, we have to take one last journey down Ben Shapiro Lane. Ben Shapiro is going to get us back out of the mess to the big picture. And to get there, we're going to follow Ben Shapiro's mess that he started for himself.
I remember where I was when all this was happening. I was in Los Angeles. I had sort of a breakfast/lunch meeting with somebody. And I got the news that Charlie had been shot. And my security was on the phone with Charlie's security because nobody knew what the hell was going on. Well, Charlie was still in the back of the car, and we were sort of getting updates along the way. At 2:40 p.m.
Posted that of his own accord. Did not need to say that. Could have kept your mouth shut, Ben. Because what Ben just said is that while Charlie Kirk was bleeding out in the car, they were speeding through the town on the way to the hospital. This is within like 7 minutes of Charlie getting shot, maybe 10 minutes. Apparently, Charlie Kirk's security team decided rather than packing the wound, rather than controlling the C-spine, rather than looking for any other injuries, rather than calling the hospital ahead of time to tell them that they were coming with a gunshot wound, rather than accepting the assistance of the actual paramedics that were on scene with trauma bags, rather than calling his next of kin, calling his family, calling TPUSA people, rather than calling any of those people or doing any of those things, they decided, let's call Ben Shapiro. Let's call Ben Shapiro's team. And that's super fucking weird, dude. That is super weird. There is no reason in the world to call Ben Shapiro's team at that moment. They're running with this spin that it's like, oh, well, because they weren't sure if other right-wing podcasters were in danger. They were afraid that Ben was in danger. What? So Charlie Kirk gets shot by a crazy tranny leftist, obviously. And their first thought is, oh my gosh, it must be a coordinated hit on all of the conservative podcasters in America. So we got to call all the conservative podcasters in America and warn them immediately before we even stabilize Charlie Kirk or get him to the hospital. Let's call Ben Shapiro. In fact, let's also call Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and Megyn Kelly and Jack Posobiec and Benny Johnson. And wait a minute. They didn't call any of those people now, did they? They just called Ben Shapiro. Kind of weird. Not even Charlie's friend. Not the same company. Literally lives on the other side of the fucking country. He is, kind of, how do we say he is pretty close with Israel and with Bibi and, His whole security team is like, apparently ex-Israeli special forces and shit. But then don't worry, because Tim Pool rode in like a white knight to save the day, to tell the hard truths. Because Candace Owens was pointing out that this is not normal. This is not normal. What the fuck is this? And Tim Pool had some words for Candace. He put Candace in her place. Mine too, you witch. We were getting updates. I'm so tired of this. F all of you retarded psychos. So Tim jumped in and started claiming that he also got phone calls while Charlie was bleeding out in the car on the way to the hospital. We all did. It was not even weird. Right, Tim? You mean the sources that told you that Charlie was stable like an hour after he was dead? I received a call from a trustworthy source who told me this. I want to believe and I'm hoping. Just pray. I remember this time. I remember these tweets. I remember this was extremely fucking shocking. No, Tim, you were not getting updates. Clint Russell pressed him so much on this. Politics is fake and gay. My team was also getting updates. Notably, I tweeted that Charlie was reportedly stable. This is because we got updated while they were transporting him. You're all fake. No one was telling you he was stable while he was literally dead in the car, speeding to the hospital, hanging out the window. No one had packed the wound. No one had given CPR, or maybe they had. Stories differ. That's not stable. And there's no one that's ever going to call Tim Pool and say, we got him stabilized, bud, when you're literally in the car. That's, bad call, Tim. Don't post this. This was a dumb thing to post. And Clint rightly picked up on it. Charlie was at the hospital within 10 minutes of getting hit. I flat out don't believe you. You posted he had a pulse an hour later. So not well en route to the hospital. Not a chance. And since you're calling me fake, you can now prove me wrong. And then Tim tries to move the goalposts and pretend it was it was just this team talking to my team. You're pretending it's weird to make insinuations. Just fucking stop. No, bud. No one is getting called from inside the car, you fucking liar. This was because we got updated while they were transporting him.
And I got the news that Charlie had been shot, and my security was on the phone with Charlie's security because nobody knew what the hell was going on. Well, Charlie was still in the back of the car.
All right, Tim, if you want to jump in there and die on defending that hill, that doesn't make any sense. Be our guest. But I will point out that there was, this news about how Tim Pool was trying to sell his company to the Daily Wire because he needed a payout or something. I don't know what's happening with that anymore. I just know what I knew, about a year ago. Yeah, it's awkward, Tim. That's pretty awkward. Not making a whole lot of sense. So we learned that Ben Shapiro is apparently got an inside line to what was going to happen to Charlie that day. And that's just a little uncomfortable. That's a little uncomfortable because Ben, let's just say that a lot of people have theories about Ben's allegiances to this country and his potential involvement with another one. There's photos of Ben shaking hands with Benjamin Netanyahu, and I think we all know where Ben's true loyalties lie. And it kind of makes you wonder, did Ben have a vested interest in what happened that day? Kind of makes you think back to the podcast that Charlie did with Ben just the day before. Kind of makes you think about Ben then becoming the headliner at TPUSA 2 years in a row by buying the spots. So let's talk about this Israel thing, huh? Because ultimately, you can feel however you want to feel about the evidence in the trial. I'm not, I don't care. I'm not emotional about it. I'm not offended if you think that Tyler Robinson did it. That's totally fine. It's weird how the other side, as in the side that says Tyler definitely did it, it's all just insults and rage and you're evil and you're a demon for even thinking anything. Don't think. And people like Barron or Candace or myself is we're literally just here being well, it's think whatever you want. This is the evidence and this is what I think of it. And you can look at it for yourself and come to your own conclusions and ask questions and do whatever you want. It's fine. You're going to be fine. Okay. No one's going to die. It's kind of a, poor choice of words. It's not an issue. It's, make up your own mind. And personally, when I look at the evidence, when I read books like this one, which is an Israeli written history of the history of Mossad and their targeted killing programs. It's an extremely extensive volume because there's a lot of history of Mossad's targeted killings. Let's just say that. When you actually learn your history about the world's foremost assassination nation, the country that assassinates more people than all other countries combined, literally, the country that has built its entire military sort of power projection on assassination specifically, built their entire intelligence apparatus on targeted killings specifically. Well, once you actually know your history about all that, You actually know where the leadership in Israel came from and the things that they've done to gain power and the things that they are willing to do to keep it. It does remind you of this text message chain that was a hoax until Candace published it, I'll remind you. Sort of like the dogs not finding the gun was a hoax until Candace published it. I forgot to even go over that today because there's so much stuff to go over. Jewish donors play into all the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. This was sent to Jewish donors. This was sent to the big dogs. This was not some idle conversation with his friend. This was sent directly to the one people that would be offended by it. This was him playing ball. This is a very real message. And by the way, in it, he says, we won't cancel Tucker. I'm thinking of inviting Candace. And he's losing millions of dollars over that decision. And he's pissed. But then it makes you think about messages like this. April 3rd, 2025. It's going unnoticed because so much other news is happening, but the war drums are beating again in DC. The warmongers worry this is their last chance to get the white whale they've been chasing for 30 years. An all-out regime change war against Iran. A new Middle East war would be a catastrophic mistake. Our military stockpiles are depleted from 3 years of backing Ukraine. Our effort to reshore manufacturing has only just begun and will take years to bear fruit. War would worsen our already immense deficit and national debt. Iran is larger than Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan combined. A war would not be easy and could easily become a calamity. Thanks to President Trump's restraint during his first term, America has a golden opportunity to pull away from Middle East quagmires for good. We shouldn't throw that opportunity away so that some DC has-beens can feel tough by sending young Americans to die yet again. Now we're in the middle of dragging that war out into more and more billions and billions and billions of dollars. You can believe the different sides of the coverage you want to believe, but no matter which side you read, it's pretty obvious that the Israeli side is the side that wanted it. The Israeli side is the side that pushed it. The Israeli side is the warmongers that have been trying to chase that white whale for 30 years. That's Benjamin Netanyahu. That's who that is. And this is an existential level decision for Israel. This is their end game. They need to take down Iran, and they need to do it now. And you're telling me that they were just going to let Charlie Kirk say things like this. They were then just going to sit back and watch as Charlie Kirk said things like this. Openly said that October 7th was a false flag. Charlie openly said that he had serious questions about stand-down orders on October 7th. Charlie openly was starting to say things about what was happening in Gaza, about war crimes. And a lot of people will push back and say Charlie was a Zionist through and through. He was never going to turn on Israel. That's a fair take. I think I agree to a certain degree. Isn't that how you would describe Megyn Kelly? For a long time, that's how you would have actually described Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson even back in the day. But let's look at Megyn Kelly, shall we? Remember Megyn Kelly? Just classic, simple, Zionist, basic conservative gal. Great reporting, but just mainstream conservative world. Always there with Israel. Always a Zionist. Held on. And did a lot of podcasts with Charlie, loving on Israel, even as the rest of the conservative world was peeling off and talking about Epstein, and peeling off and talking about Gaza, and peeling off and doing the research and realizing that, like, what the fuck is going on in here? But Megyn Kelly stood strong through it all. And she didn't change her stance. She stayed Zionist. And then the Zionists demanded that she condemn Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson or whoever it was first. And she didn't really want to. She didn't really want to get in the mud. And because she didn't want to get in the mud, then Zionists started to call her an evil piece of shit. They started to call her an anti-Semite. They started to threaten her. And then it just started to snowball, because that's what happens when you show even the slightest bit of hesitancy. When you even begin to imagine not kissing the boot, not slurping the slop, not humping the wall. If you even show one baby step backwards, the Israeli lobby, the Zionists, the Jews, all of them, the whole faction descends like vultures and attacks and forces absolute 100% loyalty or else. And we've gotten to watch that happen to Megyn Kelly over the last 6-8 months, who was ostensibly, obviously, their friend. And now you can find all kinds of super hateful things posted by all kinds of Zionists. You can go back and watch Ben Shapiro try to manipulate her on stage and try to get her to conform to his things and say the words, say you disavow her. That's what Zionists do. And Charlie was starting to feel it too. And he was starting to express his frustration about it. That's what Zionists do when their friends start to ask questions, when their friends start to wonder, why are we fighting these wars? And sure, Charlie might have never turned on Israel. Probably wouldn't have. But do you really feel confident that Charlie would have backed the war in Iran and shut up about the Epstein files and just gone along with all of it, even as the propaganda mounted, even as they tried to merge the Israeli and American militaries and intelligence apparatuses? I personally do not think so. And there's a mountain of evidence around the complicated timeline of his shifting beliefs. And honestly, ultimately, the fact of the matter is that TPUSA was a Zionist asset. TPUSA is a Zionist asset. It was built by Jewish and Zionist donors, spending tens, hundreds of millions of dollars over the years to build up one of the most powerful political organizations in America. Probably the most powerful political organization in America, particularly because it targeted the youth. And they had it. And you think that the Zionists are going to let that just slip away from them? You think they're going to let Charlie Kirk ask a few too many fucking questions about that kind of situation and let that kind of an asset go? Yeah, I am not convinced. And that doesn't mean that Israel did it. That doesn't mean that I think I'm for sure 100% right about their involvement in some way. I don't know. All I know is that that's a perfectly reasonable question to ask. And I know that Joe Kent and the entire counterterrorism task force was shut down and told to go home. You're not allowed to investigate foreign leads, even though there are several. Plenty. Perhaps Ben Shapiro just gave us another one to look at. I guess ultimately, I wasn't born yesterday. I've been around. I've seen the Epstein files, seen the Epstein investigation, seen what Kash Patel did with all that, seen what the FBI did with all that, saw 9/11, still have all the same questions. Our government, they're not here to tell you the truth. They're not here for you. America is the largest empire the world has ever known, and it's got a parasite named Israel delved deep into its brain. Inextricable at this point. Basically running the entire administration, whether because of blackmail or whatever's going on. We don't know. I don't know. I'm tired from this week. It's been a lot of reporting. It's been a lot of watching court proceedings. And ultimately, it's going to go to trial. The judge will hear final arguments on September 1st, and they will make a ruling about what to do about it. I'm sure it will go to trial. And at trial, we'll get all the actual evidence. We'll get all the actual arguments, and that'll be interesting. And we'll see what comes out on top. Hopefully, Tyler Robinson is still alive by then. You can make up your own mind. You can judge the evidence for yourself. You should judge the evidence for yourself. You shouldn't take my word for anything. You shouldn't adopt my opinions. I'm not the source of truth. I'm not even all that smart. I'm just doing my best to figure out what the hell is going on out here. And there's an awful lot of deception. There's an awful lot of smoke and mirrors and gaslighting and paid shillery on the internet. And so just be careful out there in the information space and guard your mind. But I'm starving, and that's all I got for you right now. We'll keep covering it. We'll keep watching. We'll keep tabs on it. We'll check back on Ben Shapiro and see if he's crashed out again by next week. But for now, thanks for being here. Thanks for liking and subscribing and sharing and doing all that stuff. Don't forget to drink some water. I need to refill my glass. Tell someone you love them. Do something nice for someone. Get some good sleep. And I'll see you in the next one.
Conspiracy theories are entering a dangerous
Information is the oxygen of the democracy.
There's so much evidence out there that even if less than 1% is true, that would be enough